us for this energy colloquium. And we are very excited for you to be here and also to hear from Oahu Energy Cooperative. So, I'm not sure, is the, oh, I see it now. So first, we'd like to, before we start, we'd like to do some introductions just of our team. Oh, wait a second. Where the slideshow pop up? So this is our team. Lucy is a junior at Myron B. Thompson Academy, and she has she, her pronouns. I'm Clara. I also have she, her pronouns, and I'm a junior at Iolani. And Sarah from UH Manoa also has she, her pronouns, and she studies global environmental science. And our community organizer is Lauren. She has she, her pronouns, and she works for Sierra Club of Hawaii, and she's a UH Manoa alumni. So now we're gonna just talk about what we're gonna be doing today. So first, we're gonna go over the energy justice and HEMES principles that guide our work. And then we're going to go over energy principles. And then we're gonna be talking about what a just transition is, what that framework is and what it looks like. And then we're gonna discuss what cooperatives are. And then we're gonna hear from Oahu Energy Cooperative. And after that, we're gonna have reflection and pauhana. And so now I'm going to pass it on to Lucy to talk about the energy justice and HEMES principle.
Yeah, thank you all for being here. Super excited. So to begin, we want to ground ourselves in these key principles. Building an energy movement requires building community. So it's important that this is a safe and open space for all of us to learn together. We want to highlight all voices in this space and welcome everyone and their unique experiences and perspectives. So as you can see, these are what we want to practice today, being inclusive, emphasizing organizing from the ground up, and so on. Next slide. So with that, let's dive into some important terms and vocabulary to frame the environmental justice movement. So to define non-environmental justice, energy justice, it is achieving equity in the energy system while addressing social, economic, and health burdens of those historically harmed by it. So this is what we're all here to learn and fight for. So an important aspect of energy justice is energy democracy, which merges the energy transition with the strengthening of public participation. Communities have a say in shaping their energy future. So it's important for us to be participators in our decisions and what's happening in our communities. And it also allows accountability for the energy projects that do come up. So we want this democracy to operate inside of energy sovereignty, which means community scale ownership as an act of self-determination, centering the inherent human rights in the energy system. So we don't want communities just to have a say in their energy systems, but we want them to be able to run it because they know their communities best and the needs of their community. So at the end of the day, energy is a human right and we all need it. And it shouldn't be privatized, but should be centered in the community and in that justice lens. Go to the next slide. So energy justice is a part of this big picture goal of a just transition for our society. Every system, like our energy system, is operating within a greater economic system. We currently have an extractive economy that is continuously extracting finite resources. And as we know, this is not sustainable. So we need to focus on how we can live and thrive in connection to nature and the people around us. And energy justice is such a huge component of this because we need energy to survive. And it's pushing our reliance on fossil fuels, which are non-renewable and hurt the health of our communities and our planet. So of course, part of this goal of these colloquiums is to identify the steps towards making this transition. So I'll invite Lauren to dive into what community-owned energy looks like versus what we have now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lucy and Clara. So we definitely want to get to listening and learning from the Molokaʻi folks, but next slide, please. Maybe. But we want to kind of set context of what a cooperative is, just the basics, and I'd be remiss not to mention what our current system is as well. So cooperatives are people-centered enterprises. They're owned, controlled, and run by and for their members. And the real important factor here is that they are closer to the members that they service, right? Currently, we have an investor-owned utility model, which is that private equity firms and shareholders primarily are in the driver's seat of decision making, and sometimes they're not even in the same place. They're not even maybe in Hawaii making these decisions, but kind of offshore. And so that is why we mentioned like local power and local control is so key, because that is the way that we can ensure that the needs of the community are met, because they're working directly with community or are owned by the community. So that is ideal of when Lucy mentioned energy democracy. We want to see this shift from the monopolized power to something that is much more distributed, and decision making comes from the ground up. So this is actually Hawaii does have, on Kauai Island, does have Kauai Island Utility Cooperative. So it's just one on that island that services, and we like to see that. But just like anything, I think it's always important that we always have accountability and transparency be a part of any system that we have, especially if we're talking about a democratic system. So that's all I will share, and that's why everybody's participation matters, as well as just the members of that, say, board. So yeah, next slide, please. Just wanted to share that, and to really highlight. So I mentioned Hawaiian Electric, our investor-owned utility. So it is corporate, owned by shareholders. And so that is the norm in the US's electric grid. So Hawaiian Electric services about 95% of Hawaii's customers. So we say that is a privilege to be able to do that, especially since we consider energy an essential human right. We use it every day, all day. It's an essential part of our lives. And so just like noticing the number of companies that are investor owned, there's only 168. There's way more cooperatives and way more publicly owned, right? Whether it's like a city or state owned utility. And that's great. But then when you look on the other side and seeing how many customers they're actually servicing, that's again speaking to a monopolized power and having that privilege to service so many customers. And previously what were the investor-owned model. Sorry, gay learners, because you can hear my toddler. That's home life for you. But basically the profit seeking in our energy system is a problem, and we would like to see where we have more cooperatives and public owned actually servicing way more, making a more equitable and just energy system and rate system, which we currently don't have. And there's intentions to change this. But what we really want to see is, a greater model that is rooted in community versus this top-down investor-owned utility model. And so next, that's why I'll transition into Ho'ahu, and why we're so excited to see a community that has really started in the grassroots and maintained those grassroots to do energy the right way. So I'll just stop there. Thank you.
Yes, as Lauren said, we're so happy to have the folks from Oahu Energy Cooperative Molokaʻi with us today. And they're a new local entity formed to support community-owned energy projects, seeking interest from individuals and companies based on Molokaʻi with qualifications relevant to energy development. And we're very excited to hear about their journey and knowledge in having a co-op and making energy knowledge more accessible. So now I'll pass it off to the folks from Oahu Cooperative to introduce themselves.
Well, I'm Artie, and the other half of Artie and John. And we have been interested in just energy, justice and energy, right from the time that we first came here. We've been here now for 20 years. And over that period of time, we have seen, community efforts to try to get towards something that was, more suitable. And they just kept getting shut down. So we have all the documentation of all the failures, but we never give up. We absolutely never give up. And you guys are our future. The kids, the youth that are involved, you're the future. And we have to just keep working. Our goal is that we own and operate our own electrical system. We're not there by any means, but we're sure trying.
I don't have much to add to that. We've started this cooperative in October, but the history goes back 2 or 3 years with Amelia Nordhook, and now Ali Andrews has taken over the lead of that. And so we've been systematically putting things in place. We have a board, we have bylaws, we have a contractor. And so, and we have the possibility of educating our youth from high school, coming out of high school to be the installation and construction workers for these kinds of projects for renewable energy. So we're working at it. And Artie and I are just in there doing what we can to support the group. Thank you.
Thank you, Artie and John. Aloha, everybody. My name is Tadia Mashida, and I'm the 4th generation from my family to be here on Molokaʻi. I own the local newspaper here, the Molokaʻi Dispatch. I've had it now for, it's been community owned now for about 16 years. It's been one of my joys in having that part of playing that role in my community as a publisher. I was lucky enough to be hopefully a Voyager, a proud father of 2 awesome boys, 7 and 10 years old. And I actually come from, I'm just gonna stop right here because I have to stop and say that I have this overwhelming feeling already from this group and from this meeting, just the fact that you guys are young and interested in this stuff, and not just in energy, but the justice aspect. I'm already moved by this and by your interest, and the level of which that you guys are diving into energy justice. From the just short, few minutes that I've spent here with you guys, I have to say that it's moving, because I truly believe that if you guys are embracing it the way you are, that there is indeed hope. Yeah. So I come from a family. My grandfather was the president of Molokaʻi Electric. He was the first Japanese American to be to kind of oversee electric company in the U.S. And my father followed in his footsteps. He did the first net metering and solar. What happened right here on Molokaʻi, right outside of the airport, and that kind of went on. From there, it was sold to HECO, and but I don't remember my grandfather as an electricity or an engineer or anything like that. He was known as a community man, and that's the spirit from which I come from. And I just want to give the rest of my board members a quick moment to introduce themselves, because this is way more than just us. This is our community, and we're lucky enough to have some really awesome Molokaʻi leaders with us. Go for it, guys. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead with the presentation, if that's okay, and then I'll when we get to the discussion part, the rest of our board can jump in and talk story with us. But okay, so like John and Artie explained, we've been meeting for years, and we've given things a lot of different tries here on Molokaʻi. But give you an idea of where we come from and why we're doing this. Molokaʻi is an island of about 38 miles long and 8 miles wide. There's only 7,000 people here, compared to Oahu, where there's about 1 million people. So you can see we're a smaller island than Oahu or many of the other islands, but you can just see from this aerial view the amazing open spaces that we have. Very little development. Next slide, please. We love our signs over here. I added this slide because it's colorful. Our people here are very democratic. They say how they feel. They do how they feel. The reflection of their values is worn on their sleeve. It's put out in the yard as a sign. It's, you know, and if you really look at all these signs, what they are is they talk to our resources. They talk about water. They talk about, you know, our cultural rights. They talk about protecting the things that we love, basically. Next slide, please. So Aloha Aina movement, you know, in the 1970s, there was a renaissance of Hawaiian culture and a reawakening of Hawaiian values. And, you know, I'm really proud to come from a place that was really one of the starting points for the Hawaiian Renaissance. You know, you had Hokulea on one side that was inspiring people around the state through their voyages. And you also had the Koho'olawe activists that went from our island and risked their lives to occupy Koho'olawe and to say no to the government. And to this day, Koho'olawe is no longer being bombed. It's trying to be healed. And we have this amazing statewide, global movement of Hawaiian people who, you know, are growing and leading every day. And I always have to acknowledge that history from our island because it's these people, next slide, please. Because it's these generations that, you know, they fought super hard to leave Molokaʻi as an open space. So when people say, hey, oh, you're so lucky you're from Molokaʻi, that you know, you're so lucky that place is still the way it naturally, like the old Hawaii, you know? And I say, hey, you guys, luck has nothing to do with it. The people from our island have fought for generations, have been forced to react for generations from outside interests that have wanted to change the place where we come from. He wa'a, he moku, he wa'a. So the wa'a is an island and the island is a wa'a. This is just a really simple, this came from my voyaging days, but the concept is really simple, you guys. You only have so many resources on the canoe and only so many people to depend on and have relationships with and you know, make things work. You have a limited set of resources. An island is just like a canoe, and the earth that we are all sharing is a canoe as well, sailing through space. To borrow a few words from Nainoa Thompson, you know, and in a nutshell, we all need to understand that. And we're lucky because we come from Molokaʻi, we come from a finite place, and we understand the importance of those resources. Next slide, please. I talked a little bit about my grandfather. This is just some quick pictures of the original Molokaʻi Electric and him when he first came here. You know, he made it through high school, but put himself through correspondence school to become an electrician. And, you know, so self-made man and really, you know, he has the values that I hope that this whole entire cooperative hopefully will embody, you know, the spirit of community. Next slide, please. So, you know, Molokaʻi is a beautiful place with beautiful people. We're lucky in so many ways. But you know, I'm lucky. You know, I have a house over my head. My house is in forbearance right now. You know, it's and I'm a lucky one. You know, I can still pay most of my bills and everything else. But for most people here on Molokaʻi, the struggle is real. Auntie Lori talks about energy justice. When she talks about it, she talks about her family. She talks about her having 6 people under her roof and her mo'opuna several generations, and how every year for decades, you know, her family's paid $500 to $600 in electricity every month. And if you can imagine the pressure and you know, just from electricity, just something that you need every day just to live, how oppressive that is for us. It's not easy being here on Molokaʻi. Next slide, please. So this generation is very, very lucky. Those people who helped spark a renaissance also pushed a lot of development away from Molokaʻi, a lot of outside interests, a lot of ideas that did not align for our community. They've spent lifetimes protecting us. And our generation is lucky because we have these open spaces. We have a open slate, a clean, open places that, you know, we are kind of inheriting, you know. And I think our kuleana is to be proactive. You know, our kupuna have spent so long fighting and being forced to react to people, you know, wanting to change things, wanting to extract resources. And I'm grateful because they left us a space that we can be proactive in. Next slide, please. Oahu Energy, our cooperative, is really a reflection of having a space to be proactive, having the support and the knowledge and the ike of our kupuna behind us. It's not often that we have, that any community has those ingredients to bring people together and to create resiliency, you know, and to have a cohesive, to have some type of unity in which we can work together. And I'm proud to say that many volunteer hours and many volunteers have come together in that spirit to create something that's forward-looking, to create something that can help pull us out of where we're at. Yeah. So, you know, we're a grassroots community-led energy cooperative made up and led by local Molokaʻi volunteers. Our mission is to produce community-owned, affordable, renewable energy for the benefit of our members, the community, and our environment. Our vision is resilient, sustainable, equitable, culturally conscious energy for all. And we're grounded in a belief that our natural energy sources should benefit the communities who steward and care for those resources. And really, that's more of our generation continuing that protection, continuing to maka'ala, continuing to aloha aina and malama honua, continuing to be a servant towards our environment, our you know, our life support system that keeps all of us alive. That is our kuleana, and we're hoping that through this community-led cooperative, by hopefully you know, targeting or spearheading this through values for the sake of our community. We're hoping that this cooperative can become a reflection of our goals as a community. Next slide, please. So community-based, so this is just some numbers really quick. So the total number, there's about 2,600 homes, 2,300 or 2,700 homes here. About 30% of them are renters. Average monthly bill is 133, but much higher for a lot of people. That last number, we can actually, so basically the way our cooperative works, right, is really pretty brilliant. In a nutshell, you know, there was a first round of solar. Hey, you can put solar on your roof and have some credits and save money and join the green revolution, right? Well, great. If you own your house and you've got an extra $20,000, that works for almost no one here on Molokaʻi, right? So all the people who could get the rooftop solar got it here. And now you have a lot of people who they don't own their homes, they're renters and whatnot. So the cooperative, what we're trying to do is we're trying to win this big energy contract. About 2/5 of Molokaʻi's energy needs is up for grabs right now. And so our community has created this development arm to bid on this project. And so if we win this project, basically it allows people like renters who wish they could have solar panels on the roof. Hey, we get some solar panels, we get this whole row right for you. If you buy in with your subscription, you reap the benefits of these panels, this row of panels for you, your home, your family. And what that looks like is a reduction on your electric bill, which would be a reflection of your partial ownership of the cooperative. And overall, we're looking to, you know, for substantial savings. Like, hey, can we save people 10% or more on their their utility bill? And we're working so hard because if we can attract cheaper loans, if we can attract value through grants and you know, whatever kind of support we can get, we are pouring that into the value of the project so that in the end, it's hopefully not going to be just 10% savings. It'll be more, hopefully much more. I don't know. But that's kind of what we're aiming for. Next slide, please. So this is kind of like right now the RFP calls for the site to be at the utility. So this is an overhead view of our utility here on Molokaʻi. Right now it's run on diesel. There are no large utility scale projects of solar on Molokaʻi. So this is just kind of like a draft or a quick overhead view of kind of what about 250 megawatts or 2.5 megawatt energy site would look like. The whole entire RFP is about 2.75. So we would have the rest, the 0.25 probably offsite somewhere else. Next slide, please. So that talked about that the rest of that, the 250 kilowatts being somewhere else. So that could be at a community center or somewhere else. But basically what we want to do is if we're a community run solar co-op, we want our community to be able to walk up to something and say, wow, I own this. I own a part of this. Look at it. Look at how it works. I'm proud of this. I understand it. This is a huge part of things for us. We started our meeting tonight listening to Namakani Eha, it talks about these 4 winds. Well, we have dozens and dozens of winds that are named on Molokaʻi. And it just, it illustrates our tactile relationship with our resources. Next slide, please. As we, I don't know, that it doesn't quite, can you go back and forth one more time? It's kind of, there we go. Okay, so our development partner, Shake Energy, you guys, Ali's here with us today. Shake Energy has, Ali is Shake Energy, and she's been a friend and a part of our community for a few years now. And I just want to say that sometimes it takes somebody out from outside. Sometimes it takes a facilitator. Sometimes it takes somebody to come into your community to say, hey, this is not about what I want or what I need. What do you want and what do you need? And I give Shake Energy so much credit for coming to Molokaʻi and doing something that no one else has ever done for us, to come in, not with their own interests, but to come to empower from within. Mana Pacific was our second developer that we selected. They're known for doing all kinds of installations throughout the Pacific. And similar to our cooperative, they're a values-based company and well-aligned with this community and the projects that we're hoping to do together. Next slide, please. So anyway, I just wanted to end with this, again, more signs. And really, we're talking about energy justice. Yeah, we're talking about equity. We're talking about the Mauna. We're talking about windmills in Kahuku. We're talking about the pipeline, the Dakota pipeline. We're at a turning point, you guys. We cannot leave communities out. We cannot leave indigenous communities out. And I hope that you, younger generation, is going to represent that turning point where there is just no choice but to build equity within our indigenous communities. And with that, I'm just gonna finish up and say mahalo to everybody and thank you for giving us the space. So what's next? I'll leave that up for a discussion. That's a good segue and cue, right?
I guess technically this is where I'm supposed to jump in and guide us into our next section. Originally, we were going to do breakout rooms. Because we're a smaller group, we're going to keep it as a whole big group and just kind of talk story and ask questions and stuff. I think Lauren and Claire, you'll be facilitating that. But thank you guys so much. I know personally, I'm so impressed and so inspired, and I want to know so many more things. So I know I have my own list of questions that I'm excited to ask you guys.
Claire, I'll let you go. Okay, cool. She unmuted herself. Just wanted to give her space.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your values and then also to get more knowledge about Molokaʻi. And so I was just wondering, I want to open up to the participants. Is there any questions or anything to discuss?
And you can feel free to use the chat if you would like to ask your questions. I know we've used that in the past as well. But don't be shy if anybody wants to go off. You fix your hair real quick if you want to go. I'm not off mute. Off mute and then off. You can turn your camera on, but that's okay if not. Something I just want to add, why I'm so grateful to have you folks here, is because we are often just so always, I think you mentioned, like reacting and talking about the injustices that are happening, keep happening. And I know it's exhausting for communities can feel so, like, you know, what next? What do we do? And to have, I often call you guys the North Star of how it can start in the right way and stay rooted in community and hold on to that integrity and character. And this fight, I think, is exciting. So thank you. So not seeing any questions, I'm gonna pivot to Lucy since she said she had a question. I have questions, so I'll go start with Lucy.
Yeah, I have a couple. A lot of them are very big. I just think often, yeah, like in this energy justice space, we're often talking about what we want and like the big picture, the big idea. And it's sometimes hard to actually visualize what it looks like. I guess, what was the first step of putting this together? Like, how did you guys go about actually doing this and creating this?
That's a really good question. We there have been a number of groups. One of the earliest energy groups I can remember was I Am Molokaʻi, and it was kind of that was at a point when Oahu had this great idea to build a ton of windmills on Molokaʻi to feed energy off to Oahu, you know. And so that created a kind of like a big group of youth that kind of stood up against that, and it sparked a discussion in energy. From their various people and individuals, you know, we flow in and out of groups all the time. We wear different hats and step into different spaces, and so a lot of those people. There was a Sustainable Molokaʻi. It was a great nonprofit that was formed 10 years ago or so, and you know they've done an amazing job in agriculture. In food sustainability, but one of their focuses was also energy. And so Emilia Nordic was a good friend of mine and a person in our community that brought a lot of people together. And then after she kind of stepped out is when kind of Ali stepped in, and you know, basically we just continued this discussion. And so to answer your question in a really long-winded way, you know, it's for us, it was a reaction, you know. And in terms of the passion we all feel for our community, it's really comes down to necessity. This is us fighting for our families. Justice, you know, as I shared in our history, is extremely huge. And you know, there's aunties and uncles that are getting their meters turned off. There's people that have to buy ice for their coolers every day. Their propane tank runs out and they cannot eat anything hot. You know, and meanwhile, shareholders are banking on HECO stock. Leadership at HECO is getting giant multi-million-dollar bonuses on the back of our people, our people, you know, and that is just a broken system. That's absolutely broken. And if you're talking about justice and passion, you got to start from there. You got to start with what's right, and you got to fight like hell for it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. And I see in the chat, Dyson asks, since Molokaʻi is much smaller in terms of population than Oahu, how do you see this also being implemented on Oahu? What are lessons we should take away from what's being worked on Molokaʻi? And what are some things you think we would need to change to adapt this for Oahu?
That was a
Wow,
big question.
You guys are way ahead of it. You guys are so young, you know, you guys are geeking out on the right stuff. You know, just keep building your network, keep having the discussions, you know, keep pulling people in, keep trying. If the first dozen meetings doesn't go well, the next dozen are going to be better. I guarantee it. Look for a community advocate. Look for somebody who doesn't have a dog in a fight. Right now, Ali, there's an RFP for somebody that can do community engagement, you know, to help all of these processes have less friction. So there is a need for people to be facilitators. There is a huge space. You know, if you're coming into this and you truly want to make things better, keep the space for people, create the space for people, reach out into your community and reach people not through energy, reach them through their families, reach them through their passions, reach them through their struggles and their hardships. Use that to bring people together. And it's harder on Oahu because you guys have so much special interest over there. You guys have all kinds of disparate groups, but you guys have way more people. That's your power. You guys have way more people to build, to community build. And I'm sorry, but the only way you're going to do it is through leadership. So you guys got to get ballsy. You guys got to stick your neck out. You guys got to like psych each other out and pull people together. You know, you have to build it yourself. I'm sorry to say it, but you got to start somewhere. And like us, it took over 10 years of us just trying, you know, and feeling like failures a lot of the times, feeling like, well, we don't know what we're doing. We know what we're doing now, you know, and it was well worth the journey. So that's my 2 cents.
I appreciate that, because when we talk about energy democracy or democracy in general, it only works if you participate and if you take ownership over it. And that's kind of what you're doing. Like we've been talking about as a concept, but you're making it a reality. I do want to, since you mentioned Ali, I want to just give her a little space, because we'll keep talking about you, Ali, to kind of share who you are and what you do would be great too. I know it's a strong partnership.
Thank you. I am very flattered by what Todd said. I feel very invigorated by like the way that we have all come together for this, and I think we all play our roles in like how do we create collective power. And I feel very grateful for coming into the footsteps. I'm not sure I use that metaphor right, but of like the community advocates who have come before me, and to just sort of help create that structure where the power that Todd is talking about of passion for place and knowledge of place and working for future generations, that if people like Shake, like my company, can help come and create some boundaries around that and channel that power into the sort of the systems that exist to change those systems. I think that is really important, and creating the space for those conversations to happen and to build upon each other and to not lose steam. That also feels really important. And I love this question about Oahu and what does it look like to change to bring what we have going in a 7,000 to 8,000 person area to a 1 million person area. And I know we have a bunch of Oahu residents on the call. I'm curious to throw that question back on you guys. Like, what do you think that looks like? Have you seen any structures, maybe not in energy, or can you envision what that looks like?
I know something that I'm really inspired by is the like CBSFAs around marine resources, and how communities for decades have worked to regain power and control over those resources, I suppose. So I think there's a lot of good precedent around natural resources, like, oh, sorry, CBSFAs are community-based CBS, community-based
I think.
subsistence fishing areas. There we go. And but yeah, I mean, I'm a UH grad student, and I just took this amazing class about care and collaborative community management. And just I think what hasn't happened yet is this, or what hasn't happened a lot yet, but I see it happening now, is this serious, like, attention to energy or even land use for energy purposes, as just another natural resource. Like right now, energy kind of exists in this weird other realm, this almost invisible realm. And so it's hard for people to mobilize around that as much as something that might be a little bit more tangible. Like, you can hold a fish, I guess. But the way that communities are operating and organizing themselves, I think, like, if we're thinking about kipuka, right, these like seeds for a model system that can grow. I think Oahu and the other islands, Kauai and Molokaʻi, have good precedent, kind of in niches.
So, and to that, I just want to add that, there are a lot of community-based renewable energy projects being released by the utility throughout the state right now. And our group has partnered with the Sierra Club and this, a larger social, or energy justice group to help spread the word that, what we're doing here on Molokaʻi can be done elsewhere. We've volunteered a lot of our time to spread the word, to reach out into other communities like Waianae and Kahuku. And, we're an open book. Transparency is at the heart of of our values, and empowerment. Just because we took 10 years getting us to this point doesn't mean that you guys or any other community should have to go through that too. Take all our bylaws, take all of our planning, copy and paste, Control A, Control C, Control V. You know what I mean? You guys any community can take what we have and modify it to their own use. That's our commitment, to our communities outside of Molokaʻi as well.
I have a question about the Molokaʻi community. When you were talking about how the people are very vocal and they're really involved and they talk about the resources and just they're like advocates in general. I was kind of wondering, like, what you might think is what kind of like fuels that? Is there like spaces, a lot of spaces for that, or is it just like the general how the community is and how you folks have been like pushing off from outside?
You're on mute. Okay.
I think that's a really good question. And, I don't come from a Hawaiian background. My kids are Hawaiian. And so I've lived my life, even though I'm the fourth generation from my island, asking myself the same question. And the answer that I always come back to is, Molokaʻi identifies as over 50% Hawaiian, right? So this is a truly Hawaiian island. And what I realize is that there's all these unsaid protocols and unseen practices, and the way things are done here is a little different than everywhere else. And what I realize is that, I'm so lucky to live within a values-based community, and so I think the basic Hawaiian values is that we are stewards. We are at the service of our environment, and that we, if anything, are our efficacy of being stewards is judged on the reflection of the land and its ability to support us as humans. It's judged on the relationship that we have with our environment, with each other. And I think there is a real sacredness within that value set. And so to live in a community that will fight for that value, that's willing to die for that value, that's I would say that's kind of the backbone. I would describe that as lucky we're mostly a Hawaiian place, and that that's the stewardship and sustainability. There's no words for that in Hawaii because it's just baked in.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really great to hear about how like it's so strong in the community to have those values. I feel like even though Oahu's definitely not at that place yet, I feel like we kind of have we definitely have people who do share those values, and I think that like if we opened up more spaces to talk about that, and we kind of like we continue to hear from people like you folks just talk about how important those values are, I think that more people over here can also do that. So thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, if I can piggyback real quick, because I think what's unique and even in your mission is how you talk about being culturally conscious or mindful, that what does that mean in practical terms of like how you do your like and how do you come up with that? I think that's something I know like people have raised as like, what does that look like? What does that even really mean? And how can we do that too? Right? Because I think that is a new kind of paradigm that is unique, but is also critical in how we view development and energy.
I'm gonna tell you guys, just like I tell my kids, so simple. They're the kids, right? Dad, I'm gonna be a ninja when I grow up, right? Yeah, no, you're gonna be an earth ninja. You're gonna fight for the things that can't fight for themselves. They can't fight back. You're gonna fight for the things that you love, and you're gonna fight for it through diplomacy and through the people who you are, and that's it in a nutshell. Fight for the things you love. Start really, really, really simple.
Any others have questions, comments? What we're thinking?
If other people want to jump in, feel free to. I don't want to talk too much. But I don't know. I think the cultural difference plays a big aspect here, and because there is so many people on Oahu, and we get, I don't know, much more of like the continent. Like we have much more of that vibe here because there's a lot more like imperialization. I think it comes with kind of the American value of individualism. I think that's a lot stronger here. And I think that makes it harder to build community because the people here don't like have that shared want to protect the earth and to protect each other. So that's what I was thinking about. And like our first step is tearing down the individuality. I see you're unmuted. You can talk if you want.
No, I just want to say, like, your guys' generation is so different. It's really different. You guys, like, I feel like, I keep talking about values, but you guys get it, right? You guys understand the big picture. You know what I mean? And so I know that there's an army of the younger generation that they if you just give them permission and say, okay, this is how we do it, let's do it together. Everybody wants that. Everybody just needs a helping hand, or hey, how can I help? What can I do, right? And I want to give John and Ari. Thank you so much, John and Ari. You guys gotta jump in too.
Well, I think my biggest shock when we first got here, first electric bill, $429. And I'm saying, oh my gosh, John, we can't afford to live here. We had 2 port across the street. So as quick as we could, we tried to put solar on. We had to refinance the house. I don't know, this is like the third time refinancing the house. We got the solar on and it was wonderful, but there were, there are always issues with it. And then in addition to that, in the educational system, my background was state level diagnostician in California, working with the people who had been exposed to pesticides. And I come here and I see these profiles of these kids and I just went nuts. I says, this cannot happen. So I was far more active initially about food and food things. And I'm just saying, it doesn't matter what you do, it matters that you do it. You cannot be neutral in a situation of injustice because then you have chosen the side of the oppressor. Okay, so, I would get involved with all these groups that they would have whatever meeting, but I said, you know what, we cannot be against, we have to be for. So what we have preached for years is good nutrition, good health, and caring for each other. And still, if anybody, okay, like Kyle left for 4 weeks. Kyle's the guy that has a little place in the back, the whole house is all big, huge farm. But I've had 4 neighbors come in, check on us to see that we're okay. It's amazing. Every overage of food they have already planned out. There's 3 or 4 neighbors that are controlling the gardens, and they know who to pass it to and where to get it out so that it goes out to the community. And that's how this community runs. We know that we are our brother's keeper. And so it's been a hard fight, but you know what? When Monsanto went and left, I was thrilled. And when mycogen, folded up, I'm not happy at all with Bayer. I really have tried hard on that one too, but anyways, it's just, you do what you have to do. And when you see something that is wrong or you hear about it, like Auntie Judy called me up and say, you get down there and you stop that meeting. This is bad news. And, John and I, you never get one without the other. We go down there and we stop them and say, you are not going to do this without the permission of the people. And then you'd get down to, well, can you negotiate? No, we cannot negotiate that because we are not this people. We are not Hawaiians. But you must get permission. And then comes the 3-page, newspaper article apologizing, and they left. Don't think that you don't have power. You have the choice to do what is right in every situation. And you young people coming into this energy justice, you have the choice to make a difference. Your voice is powerful. Don't ever think that you're not powerful. We used to go over, visit Oahu and go to the health food store and go, oh my gosh, look at this, it's a co-op. Isn't that wonderful? And then we were thrilled when Sustainable Molokaʻi, we've been in that group forever, got their co-op. And, there was no community supported agriculture. It was completely unorganized when we were here. We started off with raw food and that's what we did. But so we're just, I don't know what we have to offer. I really don't know what all we have to offer. But where we are is we have seen it all. We've been there, done that, and we know we have to go forward. There's a saying here, what God requires of us is that we not stop trying. Don't ever stop trying. You may not know what your role is, but be there for whatever role you're given.
From my perspective, I'm concerned about global warming, that we need to stop burning hydrocarbon fuels. We are right now something like 400 to 420, 410 parts per million of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. The tipping point is considered to be like 450, and we're just charging along the way we always have. And The answer is we can't do that. We have to change. We have to start thinking about renewable energy as a way to cope with this situation, because otherwise it's going to be so hot here, nobody's going to survive. So it's a matter of survival. Try to get this project really going, and at the same time create the justice, create the democracy, so that it's sustainable in the long term. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's really important to notice that, like, there's urgency, but there's also a way to have that urgency while also being mindful. So yeah, thank you. And I want to ask, we're going to start wrapping up. So is there any final thoughts or any announcements that anyone wants to say? And looks like there isn't. If there is, you can put into the chat. Just an announcement about in June, there's going to be a, from June 22nd is the energy sovereignty, and June 23rd is locally sourced community. So these are community-led panels. And so we really encourage you all to join. It's going to be at 5 p.m. on both days, June 22nd and June 23rd. I can put that in the chat. Sorry, one sec. Oh, and then if you're on our email list, you'll get our email reminder about this. Oh, okay. Thank you, Lauren, for putting in follow email. And so we'll be here until 5:15 for a Palhana chat, if anyone wants to stay on for that. But if you're going to hop off, thank you so much for coming. Thank you to Oahu Energy Cooperative for speaking with us. And we're really happy for all of you to be here to discuss this. So thank you. Oh, no Palhana chat. Oh, sorry. Oh, okay, got it. Sounds good. Okay, thank you so much. Mahalo, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thanks again, Lauren, and everyone else for holding the space, for giving Molokaʻi a little bit more voice. You know, I believe we're a small island that's capable of really, really big things, and I just hope that we can share our inspiration, and that, you know, you guys will all go on to be those Earth ninjas and Earth warriors and do really awesome things. Please.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We always say one more chat, but some people are already saying thank you and bye. And we're here every month. We're going to keep talking about it, different things. So you're more than welcome to come back anytime, guys. So awesome. Try to have a good holiday weekend. Do something else. We can stop the recording too.